So this entire video will be about books and learning new things, because I think as young adults we're constantly looking for new ways to improve our lives, and I think books are a fantastic source to learn from. But unfortunately, many of us either never start reading because it's been such a long time since we finished a book that we don't even remember what it's like, or we start reading like crazy because that's what super successful CEOs and gurus promote. You know, things like you either read 52 books a year, one a week, or you never be successful kind of stuff. I tried that and it didn't really work for me. At least I stopped being a person who never reads, which is a plus, I guess. But still, what I was doing was very, very inefficient. So this is my small but growing book collection. These are mainly self-help and self-development books, primarily on business, leadership, finance, psychology, etc. And with the exception of a few, I read pretty much all of these. Well, so lately it's been my wife's and my book collection, not just mine. So there are other stuff here that I haven't read. Although I'm pretty sure these are also interesting books. My wife's into fashion, but that's a bit outside of my direct area of interest. Although I'm pretty sure there are lots of great business cases in these fashion books. I got interested in self-development in my late 20s. So that was when I started buying and reading all these books like a maniac. And it was very exciting first, and it was a completely new experience. But soon after that, I started noticing some negative effects. For example, I always became very frustrated when something interfered with my reading time, which happened all the time because life happens. So that was annoying. But another thing that was very annoying was that I could never really immerse myself in the book as I was rushing through them. And in a few months, I noticed that I barely remember anything that I had read. So my approach and my entire system was completely broken, and I wanted to find a way to learn more in less time, because to be honest with you, this whole reading thing took up so much of my time that it's even crazy to think about. And most importantly, I wanted to eliminate the pressure that comes with reading for the sake of quantity. Yeah, so before I found the solution that worked for me, I had to be brutally honest with myself because it helped me change my approach a little bit. The first thing I realized was that I wanted to go from rookie entrepreneur who doesn't read to the 52 book a year CEO who's successful overnight. And obviously that's not realistic. Although it's surprising how many gurus and successful CEOs say that you can change the way you do things overnight. And I just don't think that's true for most people. I think in most people's case, it's more like a gradual change. It was definitely a gradual change for me. The other thing I had to admit to myself was that I spent a ton of my time reading all those books, but I spent very little time implementing and experimenting with what I learned about. And you know, the most annoying thing is that the knowledge I never put into practice was the knowledge that disappeared the fastest in like weeks. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that reading all these books in a relatively short period of time was an absolute waste of time, because it wasn't. And deep down I knew that improvement is somewhere on the other side of reading and learning from these books. I still do believe that, but the way I was doing this was super inefficient. But in the past 2 years, I think I finally find a system that works really well for me. Obviously there's still room for improvement, but it works really well. So let me give you the 3 guidelines and the 3 pillars that I usually go through in my head these days before I pick up a new book. Yeah, I just remembered that after giving you my 3 main tips, I also want to give you a few minor tips, but I think now that I think about it, they help me almost as much as the main things I want to talk about. Alright, I'm moving here because it's much more convenient. We've got this pile of books here, making the scene Perfect. Now, let's talk about the solution. So basically my ground rule is, rule number 0, was that I no longer care about how many books a year I read. I wanted to remove that pressure and I didn't want to focus on numbers that don't matter anymore. Why? Because I realized that reading one book a year and studying it deeply and implementing it is worth much more than rushing through 50 books and implementing nothing. And nowadays, the first thing I pay attention to when I pick up a book is that I try to read books that are relevant for me now. Because, you know, if I'm facing a challenge in marketing, I'm not going to pick up a book on leadership. Or if I want to become more productive, I'm not going to pick up a book on sales. That's the number one thing. Obviously, if everything's going according to plan in your life, then feel free to pick up whatever book you like. My second rule is that I start implementing and experimenting as I'm reading the book. It's basically the concept of learning by doing. I mentioned this before, but what I noticed was that the knowledge that I don't put into practice is the knowledge that fades away the quickest. And obviously I don't want to do that. So if I find value in a book, I will start implementing it right away. My third rule is even simpler and it's pretty straightforward, is that I take notes and I highlight the valuable bits in the book. It took me some time to realize that whenever I buy a book, my job isn't to keep the book in perfect condition. That book is for me to learn new stuff, and if highlighting things and taking notes in the book makes it easier for me to learn new things, then I will do that. Yeah, so those are the 3 main things I pay attention to these days. Is the book relevant for me now? If it is, then I want to put everything that I learn about into action as soon as possible. And 3, I try to take notes and highlight the most valuable bits in the book. So let me give you a few additional tips, because these helped me a lot and it can probably help you too if you're into reading. So my first additional tip would be to reread some of the books that you found valuable in the past, because I think in a few years we can change so much that rereading a book that we liked can sometimes feel like reading a completely new book, because our perspectives changed and we start understanding things in the book that we just overlooked when we first read it. So yeah, rereading books that you liked, I highly recommend that. For me, an example would be, this is Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. I think I've read this book like 5 times at least, and every time I read it, I manage to find something new in it that I somehow overlooked. My second additional tip would be, is to feel free to stop reading a book if you think it's shit, or if it doesn't give you enough value, or for any reason. If you fundamentally disagree with what's in the book, then yeah, don't force it. Yeah, and the last minor tip would be, is that if you like a book, but you don't really agree with everything what's in the book, feel free to implement it partially. A good example for me would be the 5 AM Club. If you've read it, I think you know what I'm talking about, but the 5 AM Club book gives you such an impossible daily routine to follow that I don't think any human can do that. But that book taught me how to wake up in time, how to wake up early in the morning, and I think is partially responsible for why I'm trying to be consistent in the gym and with my workout routine. But those are pretty much the only 2 things I picked up from that book. I really enjoyed reading it. Yeah, but if I had implemented the entire daily routine that's in the book, then I think I would be dead by now. Or if not dead, my life would be absolutely miserable. Alright, sorry, my camera died just before I finished recording the ending bit of this video. So what I was gonna say was that since I changed my approach slightly and started following these guidelines, reading became a much more enjoyable experience for me, and the way I read and the way I learn is much more efficient. I'm no longer making it about the numbers, although I try to read almost every day. And yeah, who knows, maybe in a few years I might end up being able to read 50 books a year and process all the information and value in them. If I end up there somehow as a natural result of what I'm doing right now, then, you know, that's okay. I'll be happy. Yeah, so if I end up reading 10 books a year, that's perfectly fine. If that's all I have time for to properly read and process, Yeah, so that's it for today's video. If you found value in it, please like and subscribe. That would mean a lot. I really wanted to make this a vlog somehow, but honestly, I had no idea how, so yeah. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.